The inverter on a very hot summer's day, 35 degrees, it's noisy. The fans are on. It's making electricity. For a house, it's charging batteries. And when people look at it, they say, but it's so expensive. When I installed my third system, my first full house system in 2008, it was very expensive because back then I could buy electricity from Eskom, or the City of Cape Town in my case, for 50 cents a kilowatt hour. And if I made it myself, it was 5 Rand a kilowatt hour. And it wasn't even for my whole house, it was for my lights, my TV, my internet, my computers, my garage doors, my fridges and freezers. And I could use it to boil the kettle. And I bought an induction cooker, which uses about a quarter of the electricity of a normal electrical hob or range, so that we could do cooking if we needed to boil water or to make some food in the event of a long outage. And then that system, which was 1 kilowatt of PV, 3 kilowatt inverter, and 12 kilowatt hours of very heavy lead acid batteries, 4 batteries, each weighed 85 kilos, giving me 4 kilowatt hours a day of usable power and 6 kilowatt hours irregularly. But we ran that system connected to the grid all the time, and we only used it during load shedding. And then in 2020, we took that system out and we sold it for a very good price to someone in a township. He's now the king of electricity in his township, which doesn't have electricity. People bring their batteries and other things to him to charge. We put a new system in, the one behind us, the SunSync 8 kilowatt inverter, 15 kilowatt hours of lithium ion, which gives us about 13 or 14 that we can use regularly, kilowatt hours, and 6 kilowatts of PV. And that takes our house almost completely off the grid. We only use the grid when it's cloudy. And even in Cape Town, it's amazing when it's cloudy because the clouds are high. And it's bright. And it's cool. So quite often, on a day like today, the system might be producing 4 kilowatts at peak because it's so hot on the roof. But on a cloudy, cooler day, it could be producing its full 6 kilowatts. And there's an equation, and please feel free to ask me technical questions. I'll answer them as best I can. But today's seminar, is about something else. It's not about the cost of the electricity, although obviously that's important. It's about how our minds have been corrupted by economists and accountants in general, who say, let's look at the bottom line. What is this costing us? Can we save money? Can we hire a few people to do the same job? Can a computer do the job? We all know that as computers do more and more work, things should get cheaper, but they're getting more expensive. We need to ask ourselves why that is. But besides that, there are many blessings that one gets by spending a little bit of money on making one's own electricity, for example. One doesn't have load shedding, number one. So one is never stressed out or has to look for candles or make plans for a load shedding event. Number two, if you're not stressed, your health improves. You feel better about yourself. And you are making your environment better by making the world a little bit of a better place to live, because your PV system, obviously it uses carbon to build, but it becomes carbon negative after 2 years. And for the next 10, 20, 30 years, it's carbon negative. It's not using coal. It's not putting NOx and SOx and sulfur and chemicals and mercury and lead into the air. It's not destroying landscapes with coal mines. It's not destroying landscapes with ash dams. It doesn't need a very complicated operation to run. A South African electrician can put the system in with maybe a 2 or 3 weeks extra training. So it doesn't need a 5 million rand investment in a nuclear engineer or a chemical engineer or a coal engineer or a mechanical engineer or an industrial engineer or a civil engineer or a heavy current engineer or electronic engineer to build a massive power station. Doesn't need vast capital, doesn't need vast finances, doesn't need long-term capital. So all of those are environmental benefits. Another benefit is that I can work during office hours, 8 till 5, if I choose to work those hours. I'm not worried about whether my system will be down for 2 or 3 hours and I can't work. And the same for my clients who have generators, whether they're diesel or petrol or renewable energy generators. They can work whether there's ESCOM or not. I can work whether there's ESCOM or not. And the only thing that we rely on in this case, besides us and ourselves, is MTN and Vodacom and CCOM and all those organizations, internet solutions that keep the backbone working, that keep the fiber and keep the 3G and 4G and 5G working so that we can continue to communicate and we can continue to work. So yes, the system could be expensive, but we're at grid parity including batteries, which means that we can make our own electricity for the same price as we can buy it, at least from a homeowner point of view. And when the price of electricity goes up in July in the city of Cape Town by 20%, from R3.30 to R4.56 a kilowatt hour, and you can make your own electricity for R3.50 a kilowatt hour, it doesn't matter how much money you want or have, you will be able to get finance easily because the bank can see that you're saving money. It's called, there'll be rentals, there'll be leasing, and some people will buy their systems outright. But regardless of what they cost, the cost is only one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is the income. And the third side of the equation, yes, this is not true mathematics, there's another side of the equation. All the benefits, the hidden benefits that you get, such as I said, no stress, health. If you work from home, you're always on time for work. You never have to sit in traffic jams. Your health improves, your environment improves. You always have electricity. You know that you can buy electricity at off-peak time at 2 o'clock in the morning and have a very low impact on the environment if you need to buy a few kilowatt hours to top up your batteries on a rainy day. So let us look at the big picture. A friend of mine just installed a borehole system, and now he gets 1,000 liters an hour of fresh water. He doesn't need to treat the water. He can water his garden. He's got drinking water. And it might have had a high capital cost. And maybe it's got a long-term repayment cost. But these people and their family and their friends and their community, they don't need to worry about running out of water. They don't need to worry about having an expensive month with watering their garden. They don't need to worry that they won't have enough water to keep their sewage system running. Because remember, in a city, the sewage system depends on 85 litres per person per day to run. So when the city says you can only use 65 litres per person per day, maybe it sounds like a lot to you and me. And yes, maybe we only need 5 litres a day or 10 litres a day for our washing and our ablutions and our showering and our tea and coffee and so on, and water. But we still need 85 litres a day per person to run our sewage-based system. And you might have heard cholera has come up in South Africa. And cholera happens when the sewage system doesn't work properly. And you can have pills and injections and vaccinations, and that's all very nice, but you really need to solve the core problem. Sewage. Smelliness. Get rid of it. It can be done. It's not that difficult. So when we look at our electricity supply, and when we look at our water supply, and when we look at our sewage and our waste, and when we look at our heating needs and our cooling needs, we need to look at not just how much does it cost us, but also not just how much money we can make because we don't have load shedding, but also your health improves, your environment improves, your stress levels go down, you feel better about yourself. Your friends always know that they can come to your place for a nice hot cup of coffee made from the sun. No gas needed. And here in South Africa, off the northwest coast, close to Namibia, we found offshore gas and maybe some oil and other distillates. We're not sure of the chemical percentages yet, but the experts are working on it but there could be oil and gas off our west coast, and soon we could have gas-fired power stations, which I'm told can be up and running in 18 months. We could have a 1 gigawatt gas power station in 18 months, which means we could have 2 gigawatts in 19 months, and so on. And Eskom have spent the past 14 years trying to bring 10 gigawatts on the grid in 14 years and failed spectacularly, Medupi and Kusile. And we can discuss that. If they had copied Matimba's design for Medupi would have been up and running by 2015. All the engineering had already been done for that kind of coal in that kind of location with those kinds of people. Just copy and paste. Take this power station, use it for that power station. In Kusile, there are other power stations in the vicinity of Kusile, and those could have been copied and pasted, and Kusile could have been up and running in 2018. And all the coal people would be saying, yeah, we've done a great job. And all of the environmental requirements, such as flue gas desulfurization, taking the shit out of the exhausts, out of the chimneys, the NOx and the SOx and the dioxins, which cause cancer. And all of that rubbish and ash could all have been dealt with and solved by the coal industry, but it hasn't been done. And unfortunately, we still need coal and gas and hydro at the moment while we transition. And what's interesting is we've transitioned many times. You know, when the Industrial Revolution started with water, people worked out how they could make a mill, maize or corn, run off a big wheel running in a river. Textile people worked out how to take cotton and wool and make the yarns flat, the threads and the yarns flat, using water power. And then we had steam engines that used coal, and we transitioned to coal, a coal industry. And then we transitioned to oil, and we didn't use less coal power. We already had wind power because of sailing, and in Holland for pumping water and doing things. And we still have lots of those windmills in the countryside in South Africa. But we transitioned from those powers to coal, and then to oil we didn't use less coal, and to nuclear we didn't use less coal and oil, and now to wind and renewable energy. And so far we're not using less as a whole in the whole world, coal and oil, although that trend is going down. The coal industry have nothing to worry about. And it's not about how many people can be employed in the coal industry or how many people can be employed in Eskom. It's how many people can be employed because of the coal industry, because of Eskom, because of electricity. I'll give you one more example. A friend of mine has a kiln at home, does pottery. She has to fire a kiln up to 1200 degrees Celsius, and she has to keep it running for between 4 and 6 hours. And if she has a load shedding event in that, she has to redo the whole 5 or 6 hour firing. And that costs a lot of money. So when I say to her, you need to spend X amount on your system, she says, that's a lot of money. And I say, yes, but that's only part of the equation. What about how much production you're losing? What about how much electricity you're buying? How about how much electricity you're wasting? And how about your stress levels? And she says, yes, we need to look at that whole picture, because that whole picture will allow us to transition. So this video has been about looking at the big picture. It's about stepping back and saying, yes, I spent hundreds of thousands on my electrical system, but I'm making more money because I need that electricity for my income, for my business, for my life, for my house, for my ability to sustain myself and keep myself out of hospitals and out of the pharmaceutical system and out of the medical system, where I could spend easily hundreds of thousands of rands per year. And if I have water, then I know that I can clean my water and I can be happy and sane. We have the departments of sanitation who are insane because they're not dealing with sewage and pollution in the water. And this is nothing new. I can show you statistics from 20 years ago that would show you that most of the rivers in Cape Town were already polluted, and the Monaghan Lagoon was already polluted, and most of the rivers in South Africa were already polluted 20 years ago. So young people and people that don't know about the industry will think, oh, we need to do this. And we have Gordon Hill Lewis saying the city will buy electricity from homeowners and rooftop owners. Well, the city's been doing that since 2009. And the problem is that you weren't allowed to be negative from a financial point of view in a month. So it meant you could be producing 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 kilowatt hours in a month, and you weren't being paid for it anymore because your account was zero, and the government were getting that electricity for free and selling it to your neighbor for R3.30 a kilowatt hour and making 100% profit and you getting nothing. How fair is that? So I know a lot of people who've disconnected from the grid and are not supplying the grid, and that's such a waste because the government won't come to the party and pay properly for excess electricity. So what has Jordan Hill Lewis said? He said immediately, if you have a rooftop PV system in your business, you can be negative in a month. They will pay you for everything you export, and it's going to take 18 months for us to get there with our systems so that people can be negative in a month from a house. But guess what? Those systems were installed in 2010. The laws were changed in 2010. Everything already exists. And why is Jordan Hill Lewis saying he's going to buy electricity and then saying he can only do it in 18 months? So what's the difference? We need to understand what we're being told and not take things at face value. City of Cape Town has been buying electricity from homeowners since 2009. Initially from 3 in a pilot. They didn't need to do the pilot because Germany started in 1991. And before Eskom, 100 years ago, in 1923, before that, there were about 15 private electricity generators in South Africa. You might have heard of the Victoria Falls Electricity Company. And they were supplying and reverse feeding local grids. Now Eskom says we need to do a 5-year pilot to work out if people can reverse feed the grid, but that problem was already solved in 1915, and it was solved in 1999 from grid tie inverters like the one behind me that automatically disconnect from the grid if the grid is out of tolerance. In other words, less than 210 volts, more than 250 volts we disconnect, less than 49 hertz, more than 51 hertz we disconnect. If I export to the grid, which I don't, but if I do, my inverter helps the grid to be more stable. It helps the grid frequency to be more stable. And we've heard in the President's State of the Nation that if the frequency is wrong, we could have a blackout. I don't know if you noticed on the NCA, they've changed their terminology from load shedding to blackouts. And if you look at your insurance policy, you'll discover that they're talking about not paying if there's a blackout, which means that the actuaries are thinking there could be a blackout. And a blackout means no electricity for weeks. And if you read my book, The Last Blackout, you'll see what happens if there's no electricity. There's no cold food. Fridges and freezers, the food goes off very quickly. There's no banking. There's no petrol or diesel. There's no communications. There's no internet. There's no me talking to you like this, or you talking to me. There's no shopping. There's no water, because there's no electricity, and the water's pumped from a dam 100 kilometers away. And if there's no water, there's no sewage, which means you can't, and if there's no water, you can't wash up the plates in your kitchen. You can't flush the toilet. How long before the toilet overflows? How long before you go to do your business in the garden? How long before there's sewage in the streets? How long before cholera, typhus, typhoid all rear their ugly heads? We worry about COVID and the pandemic, but less than 4 days away are bigger pandemics because our systems run on water and electricity, and they have to have a high priority in our lives. Now just think about that. Whatever we spend on that, it's inexpensive compared to our lives, our health, our livelihoods. And having said that, it's still stupid to be increasing our prices by 20% per annum, when in fact our electricity costs have come down by 90% from 2008 to 2020. So maybe the coal price has gone up, And maybe we do need some coal, and maybe the gas price has gone up, and maybe we do need some gas, and maybe we do need hydroelectricity. But our primary electricity for homeowners, for any rooftop owner, for any car owner, is electricity from the roof, electricity from the sun, electricity from the wind, electricity from biodigesters using methane, from sewage mining, electricity from waves, electricity from ocean currents. Those are the original energies that God created on earth 13 billion years ago. And coal and gas and nuclear power, these are all the alternative energies. How can you say that sun is an alternative energy when the sun existed before the earth existed? The sun existed 16 billion years ago and the earth 13 billion years ago. And how long have we had gas power? Maybe 1,000 years. And coal power? Maybe a few thousand years. But not coal, electricity from coal. That's 150 years. So we have electricity from God. And then we have alternative energy from coal and uranium and gas and nuclear power. So let's get our facts right and let's work at what we need to do. Our primary concern is our health. We have to do everything we can to make sure that our environment is as healthy as possible. When our environment is healthy, we are healthy. We will have much fewer pandemics, much fewer bugs, much fewer disease, much less dis-ease. We will have more ease, we'll have more sanitation, our minds will be more sane. So knowing that means that we need to look after our energy system. We need to make it as clean and environmentally friendly as possible with the knowledge we have today. And that doesn't mean only renewable energy. It means also the other energies we have at the moment for the foreseeable future. And perhaps in 20 years' time, we'll have 90% renewable energy and 10% of our energy from coal and gas and uranium, because we might still need those backups for the few days a year or the 1 or 2 hours a day when we need them. But we have clever people and prices are coming down. Battery prices have come down 95% in 14 years. PV prices have come down 90%. PV prices have come down 99.97% from 1960 to 2020. Yes, you heard that correctly. From $60 a watt to a few US cents a watt. 99.97% decrease. And why, if you're in Europe, England, America, why are your prices going up when the price of electricity is going down, when the price of heating is going down? Stop being myopic. Start looking at the bigger picture. Call me. I'm available for interviews, for consulting, for helping businesses to understand the bigger picture. I consult with businesses to help them understand the big picture. So let's look at the big picture. Let's decide that our health and our environment are the primary concerns we have. And let's make everything else subservient to that. Thank you.